She was the first one born in Hebron, yes. I came here, was pregnant with her.
Ruth Hizmi is a mother of 7, a Jewish settler and a true believer. So much so that although she could live anywhere in Israel, she's chosen to live on a front line between Arabs and Jews. 8 years ago, Ruth and her family moved to the West Bank, to the only Jewish community living in the heart of an Arab city.
The minute we arrived here, I felt very happy. But before we lived here, from far away, it seemed very difficult.
To an outsider, that might be an understatement. But for Ruth, just being in the kitchen in Hebron is an act of faith. Ruth and her family live in a Jewish fortress, guarded 24 hours a day by the Israeli army. In 1929, the building she lives in was the scene of a massacre. 67 Jews were killed by Arabs. The Jews left Hebron, but in 1968, after Israel won the Six-Day War, they came back. It's less than a kilometre from home to Ruth's work as a teacher. She says she's spat on and shouted at, but this is about the only road where she feels safe to walk at all. Hebron has about 400 Jewish settlers, half of them children. Their government has already handed most West Bank towns to the Palestinians, but the settlers remain one of the most stubborn obstacles to the peace process. To the settlers, staying in Hebron means fighting to save Greater Israel. To more than 100,000 Palestinians who live around them, getting them out means shaking off Israeli occupation.
Hebron is all our country in miniature. What happens here in Hebron, in small, is happening in our country in big. Why do we want this city? Because it's part of Eretz Israel and it's a holy place for us. Why do they want this city? They say this city belongs to them and it's holy for them. But what's happening in Hebron? They want it all.
In the centre of town, Hebron's market is out of bounds to settlers. The armies decided it's too dangerous. But like everything else here, the market is part of an endless cycle of argument. The Arabs say it's theirs. The settlers say it's built on the old Jewish quarter. Like Ruth, Buran and Afifeh are teachers. They live and shop a few hundred metres from Ruth's home. Every day they too run a gauntlet. For them, it's armed soldiers and graffiti calling for death to the Arabs. They see it all as a simple equation. One side has to give in. There are more than 100,000 Arabs and only 400 settlers. At the heart of the struggle, and the heart of Hebron, the tomb of the Patriarchs, or the Mosque of Ibrahim. Jews say it's in Israel, Muslims say it's in Palestine, but to both it's the second holiest site after Jerusalem. If you're looking for a crash course in historic hatred and religious intolerance, you don't have to look further than Hebron and the tomb of the Patriarchs. To Jews, this is the burial place of Abraham, the father of the Jewish religion. But Abraham is also a Muslim prophet. For hundreds of years, that shared ancestry has fueled bitterness and bloodshed, a common bond between the two religions that's driven them further and further apart. 2 years ago, Hebron horrified the world. A Jewish settler, Baruch Goldstein, fired 119 bullets into praying Muslims in the tomb of the Patriarchs. To some at the nearby settlement he came from, Goldstein was a hero. The massacre a fitting revenge for every Jew killed by an Arab.
We think he didn't kill enough, but thanks God, what he killed, it's good. It's a good beginning.
It's almost 2 years to the day since the massacre, and Israel does ensure both sides can pray here. But the tomb's divided, Jews on one side, Muslims on the other. And since the massacre, there's so much security that many prefer to stay outside. During prayers, you can feel the tension. Those who normally pray with their shoes off leave them on, as if they expect at any moment to run for their lives. And they're right. The slightest hint of trouble here sets off a panic. Afifeh lives on what's become a ceasefire line between Jews and Palestinians. Through her wall is the Jewish playground. Where the roof of her house once was, there's a view of the Star of David. Ask Afifeh's father and he'll tell you that until the settlers started building next door, 8 families used to live here. Now there's only room for one.
طبعاً وأولادي في الدار، أولادي في البيت وهدوا الجرافات على أولادي، هدول إجوا بالليل هدوا من هون فرسة خضار.
The Israelis say it was an accident. The family says when they try to rebuild the walls, the settlers tear them down. Every day, it seems, across the trenches, the hostility continues.
We live only in ancient Jewish houses. No house was taken from an Arab. If they told you lies, I'm sorry. You can check every stone here. Every house is an ancient Jewish house.
In the settlers' state within a state, Noam Arnon is the foreign minister. He controls all access to the community.
We will have to tell to the Arabs, okay, we returned. You tried to destroy us. You butchered the Jews here in 1929. Now we are back. Now you have to decide. If you want to live in peace with us, it's okay, we want to do it. If you want to fight, we'll fight back. And we'll fight back seriously.
Noam Arnon used to be a tour guide. Now he's a salesman for Greater Israel. To him, living in peace means Palestinians living under continued Israeli occupation. Certainly not Jews living in a Palestinian state. Since last year, when Israel's Prime Minister was murdered by a Jewish extremist, the settlers have been forced to lower their profile. A tour of Hebron for right-wing politicians has lured only a few. With elections in the air, even the right wing is wary of getting too close to the settlers.
לאורך הציר הזה בחודשיים האחרונים היו 5 פיגועים שברוך השם ניצלו בנס, אבל המציאות פה היא בהחלט בעייתית. זה הציר ובעיקר ילדים וזקנים.
The settlers hope that a new right-wing government would freeze the peace process, not like the present government which has supported Palestinian self-rule and even Palestinian elections.
These are elections which are somehow supposed to be a part of peace process. And what is in the center of all these candidates? The guns and the hand grenades.
This is a city where memories are long and often selective. Even if both sides called a truce tomorrow, their history of hatred would never be far from the surface. But now this isn't just a battle between Muslims and Jews. It's also a struggle between moderates and extremists. those who've accepted a political compromise, and those who believe in an absolute religious truth. Today, in the middle of the market, it's the settlers' turn. They've come to pray for a Jewish student stabbed to death right here 16 years ago. Because of the prayers, the armies shut down the market and locked out the Arabs. It's just another chapter in what's become a three-cornered struggle. To most Palestinians, the army is part of a hateful occupation. To most settlers, the army can't be trusted because the government's ordered it to stay out of trouble. So the soldiers are caught in the middle. Inside their enclave, Hebron settlers are celebrating Tree Planting Day. But since everything here is political, they've had to put away their shovels. They wanted to plant trees around the tomb of the Patriarchs, but the army wouldn't let them. So they're singing songs, or as Ruth calls them, prayers. Prayers for a greater Israel, without their government's peace deal, and without Yasser Arafat.
Arafat says clearly, we're starting with Gaza, with Jericho, and our aim is Jerusalem. So can't you hear what he's saying? Or don't you want to hear? I want peace. I don't want peace. I want peace more than anything.
The settlers say they, like the Palestinians, have plenty of patience. They may be right. The settlers know that their battle goes to the heart of biblical Israel and their country's future. They know too that a majority of Israelis support them. And 2.5 years after the Oslo Accord, their leaders, who made peace, haven't been able to solve the problem of Hebron.